Please, I just need to get to my room. My voice sounded foreign, thick and slurred as I stumbled down the marble corridor of the Ritz-Carlton. The champagne Evelyn had pressed into my hands at dinner was hitting harder than it should have, making the gold-flecked walls blur and swim before my eyes. Room 2847, I whispered to myself, squinting at the keycard that felt impossibly heavy in my trembling fingers. The hallway stretched endlessly ahead, each step a monumental effort. My black dress, the one Evelyn had insisted I wear, clung to my skin like it belonged to someone else. Everything felt wrong, disconnected, like I was watching myself from outside my body. A door opened somewhere behind me. You look lost. The voice was deep, commanding, with an edge that made my spine straighten despite the fog in my head. I turned, nearly losing my balance, and found myself staring at a man who seemed to emerge from the shadows themselves. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold, dark, intense, studying me with an interest that felt both dangerous and magnetic. "I'm fine," I lied, gripping the wall for support. He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more primal. "You don't look fine. You look like someone who needs help." The way he said it, like he was used to being the one who provided that help, sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the hotel's air conditioning. "I just need to find my room." He glanced at the keycard in my hand, then back at my face. Something shifted in his expression, concern, maybe, or recognition of something I couldn't name. "Room 2847 is 3 doors down, but maybe you should sit for a moment." His hand touched my elbow, steadying me, and the contact sent electricity shooting through my entire nervous system. I should have pulled away, should have thanked him and walked to my room like a sensible person. Instead, I found myself looking up into those dark eyes and feeling like I was drowning. "What's your name?" I heard myself ask. "Dante." He studied my face like he was memorizing it. "And you are?"
"Nia."
The name hung between us in the dim hallway, heavy with possibility and danger. He guided me toward his suite. Not my room, I realized dimly, but I didn't protest. Couldn't protest. Something about his presence was magnetic, pulling me into his orbit like gravity. Inside his suite, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the Chicago skyline glittering like scattered diamonds. The luxury was overwhelming. Leather furniture, crystal decanters, artwork that probably belonged in museums. "Sit," he said gently, guiding me to the sofa. But I didn't sit. Instead, I found myself standing close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "This isn't like me," I whispered. "What isn't?"
"This."
"Being here. Wanting." I trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. He reached up, his fingers brushing my cheek with surprising tenderness. Sometimes we need to stop thinking and just feel. The kiss that followed was inevitable, a collision of need and desire that made the rest of the world disappear. His hands tangled in my hair as he pressed me against him, and I melted into his touch like I'd been waiting my entire life for this moment. When I woke up alone in the twisted sheets of his massive bed, sunlight was streaming through those floor-to-ceiling windows, and my head felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. The events of the night came back in fragments, heated whispers, gentle hands, the feeling of being completely consumed by someone I barely knew. My dress was draped over a chair, my shoes scattered across the marble floor. But Dante was gone. I dressed quickly, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the zipper of my dress. A note on the nightstand caught my eye, written in bold, masculine handwriting. "You were beautiful.
D."
That was it. No phone number, no explanation, no promise of seeing each other again. I fled the hotel like a criminal, shame and confusion warring with the memory of how alive I'd felt in his arms. 3 weeks later, I was staring at a plastic stick that would change my life forever. "Pregnant," I whispered to my empty apartment, the word echoing off the walls like an accusation. My hands shook as I set the test on the bathroom counter next to the other two I'd taken, hoping for a different result. But all three showed the same unmistakable double lines. I sank onto my couch, my mind racing. The father was a stranger whose last name I didn't even know. A man who disappeared from my life as quickly as he'd entered it. How did this happen? I asked the silence. But even as the words left my lips, I knew exactly how it had happened. That night at the Ritz-Carlton, when every rational thought had abandoned me and I'd fallen into bed with a man whose very presence had felt like coming home. My business was struggling, my savings account nearly empty, and now I was carrying the child of a man I'd never see again. I placed my hand on my still flat stomach, imagining the tiny life growing inside me. "It's just you and me, baby," I whispered. The phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. Evelyn's name flashed on the screen. "Hello, dear." My stepmother's voice was honey-sweet with an undertone of steel. "How are you feeling after a lovely dinner the other night?" "Like I was drugged," I said flatly. A pause. Then a laugh that sent ice through my veins. "Don't be dramatic, Nia. You simply had a bit too much champagne. You spiked my drink. I helped you relax. There's a difference." The casual admission hit me like a physical blow. "Why would you do that?" "Because debts don't pay themselves, dear. One evening could save us both." "Save us from what?" Another pause, longer this time. "From the mistakes our fathers made. From being abandoned and left to clean up their messes." I could hear something in her voice. Pain, maybe, or old rage. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing you need to worry about. Just know that everything I do for family." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. That's when the memories started flooding back. Evelyn insisting I wear that specific dress. The way she'd pressed the champagne flute into my hands. Her satisfied smile as I'd grown increasingly disoriented. She'd orchestrated the entire thing.
But why?
I was still trying to piece together her motives when I saw him again, 3 days later at a business networking event downtown. I was presenting my struggling marketing firm to potential investors when I spotted him across the crowded ballroom. Dante stood near the bar, looking every inch the powerful businessman in his charcoal suit. But it was the way he was watching me that made my blood turn to ice.
He remembered me.
Our eyes met across the room, and I saw recognition flicker in his dark gaze. He started moving through the crowd toward me, his expression unreadable. "I remember you," he said when he reached me, his voice low enough that only I could hear. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The Ritz-Carlton. 3 weeks ago." His eyes searched my face. "You left without saying goodbye." The baby. The secret I'd planned to carry alone suddenly felt enormous, impossible to hide. "I had to go. I managed." "Did you?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. "Or did someone make that decision for you?" The question hit too close to home. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor shifted. "We need to talk," he said, his voice suddenly urgent. "There are things you need to know. About that night. About your stepmother." My blood ran cold. "What about Evelyn?" "Not here." He glanced around the crowded ballroom. "Meet me tomorrow. The coffee shop on Michigan Avenue, noon." "I don't think."
Nia.
The way he said my name stopped me cold. "Your life might depend on it. You didn't show up yesterday." I looked up from arranging product displays to find Dante filling the doorway of my small marketing firm. Despite the casual tone, his presence commanded the entire space, making my modest office feel impossibly cramped. "I had work to do," I said, not meeting his eyes. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with deliberate precision. "We had an appointment. I don't recall making any commitments." "Your life might depend on it." He moved closer, his expensive shoes silent on my worn carpet. Those weren't empty words. I finally looked at him directly, and the intensity in his dark eyes made my breath catch. He was different here in daylight, more dangerous somehow, like seeing a predator outside its natural habitat. "What do you want from me?" "The truth." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Starting with this. My heart stopped. The DNA results. Somehow, he'd gotten a sample, probably from that night at the hotel, from the sheets, or… You had no right, I whispered. I had every right. He opened the envelope with steady hands, though I caught the slight tremor in his fingers. This child is my hope. My legacy. The words hit me like physical blows. How did you even? Your coffee cup. From the networking event. His eyes never left mine. 99.9% probability of paternity. I sank into my desk chair, the weight of his revelation crushing down on me. This doesn't change anything. It changes everything. He leaned against my desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne. You're carrying the heir to the Moretti family. The what? My world has rules, Nia. Expectations. This baby makes you both a target and a treasure. I stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Your shadows would eclipse us. I won't let that happen. You don't have a choice anymore. There's always a choice. He moved behind me, his reflection appearing in the glass beside mine. Not when Evelyn Santos is your stepmother. The way he said her name, with familiarity and contempt, sent ice through my veins. You know her? I know what she did to you. What she's still planning to do. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my shop's security company. Ms. Chin? We've had a breach at your location. 3 men forced entry through the back. They destroyed most of your inventory before leaving. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Dante caught it, spoke briefly to the security company, then hung up. It's starting, he said grimly. What's starting? The warrior stepmother declared the night. She sent you to my bed. Rain had started falling by the time we reached my destroyed shop. Water dripped through holes they'd punched in the ceiling, soaking into the scattered remains of my life's work. Marketing materials lay shredded across the floor, computers smashed beyond repair. Why would she do this? I whispered, picking up pieces of a client presentation I'd spent weeks perfecting. Because she's desperate. Dante surveyed the damage with professional detachment. And desperate people make dangerous choices. This is about money?
Money.
Revenge. Old wounds that never healed. He pulled out his phone. Pack what you can salvage. You're coming with me. I'm not going anywhere with you. He turned, his expression deadly serious. They'll be back. Next time, you might be here when they come. The thought of facing those men alone made my hands shake. I looked around my ruined shop, at the dreams scattered like debris across the wet floor. For how long? Until it's over. I started gathering what I could save, stuffing files and undamaged equipment into boxes. Dante helped silently, his expensive suit getting soaked as rain continued pouring through the damaged roof. When we finally made it to the alley behind my shop, he stopped suddenly, blocking my path to the car. There's something else you need to understand, he said, rain plastering his dark hair to his forehead. What? That night at the hotel, it wasn't random. Evelyn specifically chose me for you. The revelation hit me like lightning. She knows you. We have history. Before I could ask what kind of history, he stepped closer, close enough that I could see water droplets clinging to his eyelashes. But what happened between us? His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. That was real. Was it? Instead of answering, he cupped my face in his hands and kissed me with desperate intensity. The kiss tasted like rain and secrets, like promises neither of us was ready to make. I melted into him despite every rational thought screaming at me to run. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead against mine. You've stirred something in me I can't ignore, he said. This is insane. Most worthwhile things are. His penthouse apartment occupied the entire top floor of a downtown high-rise, with panoramic views of a city sprawling below. The space was all clean lines and expensive furniture, beautiful and cold as a museum display. Welcome to my cage, he said, watching me take in the opulent surroundings. It's beautiful. It's lonely. He poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter. Would you like something? Water? Tea? Water's fine. He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing mine. There's something I need to tell you about why this baby matters so much. I settled onto his leather sofa, suddenly exhausted. I'm listening. My father abandoned me when I was 7. His voice was carefully controlled, but I caught the old pain underneath. Left me with relatives who saw me as a burden to be managed, not a child to be loved. I'm sorry. I swore I'd never do that to my own child. He sat across from me, leaning forward with his hands clasped. But my world, it's not safe for families. For children. Then why are you in it? Because it's all I've ever known. He looked out at the city lights. Until now. The baby doesn't change who you are, doesn't it? He turned back to me, and for a moment, his carefully constructed mask slipped. I won't let history repeat itself, Nia. I won't let my child grow up wondering why their father wasn't there. The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the dangerous man who'd walked into my shop. This was someone who'd been hurt deeply and was terrified of causing that same pain. So, what are you suggesting? Protection. A partnership.
He paused.
Marriage. I barely know you. You know I'm the father of your child. You know I have the resources to keep you both safe. And you know I'm not the kind of woman who marries for convenience. It wouldn't be convenient for either of us. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. We have company. Who? People who want to hurt you to get to me. He stood, moving to a wall panel that opened to reveal an array of weapons. There's a safe room behind the kitchen. Go there and lock the door. What about you? I'll handle this. Dante.
Go.
Now. The urgency in his voice sent me hurrying toward the kitchen. But as I reached the doorway, I turned back. Be careful. Something shifted in his expression. You care? I don't want my child to grow up without a father either. The safe room was small but well-equipped, with monitors showing views of the building's entrances and elevators. I watched Dante move through his apartment with lethal grace, checking windows and arming security systems. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Pretty view from up there. Shame if something happened to it. A second message included a photo of Dante's building taken from street level. I called his phone immediately. They're watching the building, I said when he answered. I know. They want us to know they're there. Why? Psychological warfare. They want us scared and desperate. It's working. Not on me. His voice was steel. And not on you either. You're stronger than you think. The next morning, over coffee and croissants that had appeared magically in his kitchen, Dante laid out his plan. We need to make our relationship public, he said. A marriage announcement will provide legal protection and send a message to my enemies. A fake marriage? Real enough legally. The emotional component is negotiable. I stirred my coffee, thinking, what aren't you telling me? What makes you think I'm hiding something? You get this look when you're weighing your words, like you're editing in real time. He smiled, the first genuine one I'd seen from him. You're observant. Occupational hazard. Marketing requires reading people. Your stepmother has been planning this for months, maybe longer. He pulled out a manila folder. Bank records, phone logs, meeting locations. She's been in contact with my enemies. Enemies plural? The Moretti family has a complicated history. I opened the folder, scanning documents that painted a picture of systematic betrayal. She's been feeding them information about you. About my business, my associates, my vulnerabilities.
He paused.
About my desire for a family. So she delivered me as what? Bait? As leverage. A way to manipulate me or destroy me, depending on how events played out. I closed the folder, my hands shaking with rage. She sold me. Yes. To get back at you for something? That's what I thought initially. He hesitated. But there's something else. Something I found in your shop. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal an antique locket. Inside was a faded photograph of a man I recognized immediately. That's my father, I whispered. It's also the man who trained me, who brought me into this world. Dante's voice was carefully neutral. Vincent Chen was my mentor before he disappeared 15 years ago.
The room spun around me.
You knew my father? He saved my life more than once. Taught me everything I know about surviving in this business. He was a marketing executive. He was also one of the most effective mediators between crime families in Chicago history. I stared at the photograph, my entire understanding of my childhood crumbling. That's impossible. The night Evelyn sent you to me, she knew exactly who your father was. She knew I'd recognize his daughter eventually. So this was all planned? Every detail. The question is why? He closed the locket gently. And what she's planning next. I made the worst decision of my life that day. But before I explain how it destroyed everything I'd built, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna. Because you need to understand what desperation can make a mother do. The decision was to trust him. To let Dante Moretti become my protector, my fake husband, the father figure my unborn child would know. Because the alternative, facing Evelyn's schemes alone, felt impossible. But as we sat in his pristine penthouse, planning our fictional love story for the media, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap neither of us fully understood. There's something else, Dante said quietly. What now? Your father's last message to me before he disappeared. He met my eyes. He said if anything happened to him, I should watch over his family. Protect his daughter. You think he knew? I think Vincent Chen knew exactly what kind of woman he'd married. And exactly what she was capable of. Smile like you mean it. Dante's hand rested possessively on the small of my back as we entered the charity gala. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across his sharp features, and I caught glimpses of the man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure. I'm trying, I murmured, adjusting the emerald dress he'd selected for tonight. They're watching us. His lips barely moved as he spoke. Every gesture, every glance. We need to sell this. A waiter approached with champagne. Dante intercepted both glasses before I could reach for one, handing me sparkling water instead. Protecting the baby, he said quietly, but loud enough for nearby guests to hear. The tenderness in his voice wasn't entirely fake, and that realization sent warmth spreading through my chest. Mr. Moretti, a silver-haired man in an expensive tuxedo, appeared beside us. I didn't expect to see you at a pediatric cancer fundraiser. Plans change, Senator. Dante's tone carried an edge I'd never heard before, especially when family becomes a priority. Family? The senator's eyes flicked to me with predatory interest. How delightful. My fiancée, Mia Chen. Dante's arm tightened around my waist. We're expecting our first child. Congratulations. The senator's smile never reached his eyes. Children are such precious gifts. So vulnerable. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Dante stepped forward slightly, positioning himself between the senator and me. Vulnerability is often underestimated, he said softly. So is a father's protection. The senator's smile faltered. Of course. Enjoy your evening. As he melted back into the crowd, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Friends of yours? I asked. Politicians have flexible loyalties. He guided me toward a quieter corner. But they respect strength. Is that what that was? A show of strength? That was me making it clear that you and our child are under my protection. The word, "our," hit me unexpectedly. Not your child, or the baby, but our child. Like we were already a family instead of two people thrown together by circumstance and schemes. You're good at this, I observed. At what? Making people believe we're real. He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. What makes you think I'm pretending? Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. His expression hardened as he read the message. We're leaving. Now. What's wrong? Evelyn's associates just tried to break into my warehouse. He was already moving toward the exit, his hand firmly gripping mine. This was a distraction. The ride back to his penthouse was tense and silent. Dante made several phone calls in rapid Italian, his voice clipped and dangerous. I caught enough words to understand that something had gone very wrong. How bad is it? I asked when he finally hung up. Bad enough. He loosened his tie with sharp movements. They didn't get what they were looking for, but they made their point, which was that nowhere is safe. We rode the elevator to his penthouse in silence. The luxury that had impressed me days earlier now felt like a beautiful prison, 40 stories above the dangerous world below. "I need a drink," he said, heading straight for his crystal decanters. "Dante." I caught his arm before he could pour the whiskey. "Talk to me." "About what?" "About why you're shaking." He set down the glass with deliberate care. "I don't shake. Your hands are trembling." He looked down at his hands as if surprised to find them betraying him. "It's anger. It's fear. I don't get scared. Everyone gets scared." I stepped closer, close enough to see the tension in his jaw. "Even you." "Not about myself." "About what then?" "About failing." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "About not being strong enough to protect what matters." The vulnerability in his admission broke something open inside me. This wasn't the dangerous crime boss or the calculated businessman. This was a man terrified of repeating his father's abandonment. "You're not your father," I said softly. "How can you be sure?" "Because you're here. Because you're trying." He looked at me then, really looked like he was seeing me for the first time. "You have no idea what you've walked into." "Then tell me." Instead of answering, he cupped my face in his hands, his touch achingly gentle. "You've become my anchor," he admitted. "The thing that keeps me tethered to something good." The kiss that followed was different from the desperate hunger we'd shared in the rain. This was tender, reverent, like he was trying to memorize the taste of hope. "I should protect you by staying away," he murmured against my lips. "But you won't." "I can't." My hands found the buttons of his shirt, and he didn't stop me. We moved to his bedroom with the inevitability of gravity, shedding clothes and pretenses with equal abandon. This time, there was no fog of spiked champagne, no confusion about what was happening. Just two people choosing each other despite every rational reason not to. Afterward, as we lay tangled in his sheets with the city sprawling below us, he traced patterns on my bare shoulder. "There's something else you need to know," he said quietly. "About Evelyn? About your father's connection to all this." He hesitated. "And about mine." I propped myself up on my elbow, studying his face in the dim light. "What kind of connection?" "Your father wasn't just my mentor. He was supposed to be my father-in-law." The words hit me like ice water. "What?" "I was engaged to your half-sister. Evelyn's daughter from her first marriage." "I don't have a half-sister." "You did. Maria died in a car accident 5 years ago." His voice was carefully controlled. 3 days before our wedding." The room spun around me. "Evelyn never mentioned." "Evelyn blamed me for Maria's death. Said if we hadn't been together, Maria wouldn't have been targeted." "Were you responsible?" "I don't know." The honesty in his voice was devastating. "Maybe. Probably." I sat up, pulling the sheet around myself. "So, when she sent me to you, she was serving me her stepdaughter on a silver platter. The ultimate revenge. Or the ultimate replacement. You're nothing like Maria." "How would you know?" "You barely know me." "I know you're stronger. Braver." He sat up too, his dark eyes intense. "I know you challenge me instead of simply agreeing with everything I say. Maybe that's what Maria did because she was smart enough to be afraid of you." "Maybe." He didn't deny it. "But you're not afraid of me." "I should be." "Why aren't you?" I considered the question seriously. "Because I've seen the man behind the reputation. The one who's terrified of abandoning his child." My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. Have you ever felt that moment when everything you believed just shatters? Tell me in the comments, because right now, I need to know I'm not the only one who's been this afraid. The call came at 3 in the morning, jolting us both from sleep. "Mr. Moretti?" An unfamiliar voice, professional and urgent. "We have a situation." Dante was instantly alert, reaching for his phone. "What kind of situation?" "Your building's security has been compromised. Multiple vehicles, armed men. They're requesting a meeting." "Where?" "The rooftop." They say they have something that belongs to you. Dante's blood turned to ice. How many? At least 6. Maybe more. We'll be right up. Dante, no. I grabbed his arm. It's obviously a trap. They have something I need. He was already pulling on clothes. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. They said they have something that belongs to you. What if it's information about my father? About what really happened to Maria? He stopped dressing, conflict warring across his features. It's too dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. If something happens to you, nothing will happen to either of us. The rooftop access was through a private elevator that required Dante's keycard. As we rose toward the top of the building, he checked the gun he'd pulled from his safe. Stay behind me, he instructed. If I tell you to run, you run. Where exactly would I go? We're 40 stories up. There's an emergency stairwell on the north side. The elevator doors opened to reveal Chicago's skyline stretching endlessly in all directions. Wind whipped across the rooftop, making my dress flutter around my legs. 3 men stood near the edge, silhouetted against the city lights. One of them stepped forward as we approached. Dante Moretti. The man's accent was distinctly Eastern European. You look well for a dead man. Disappointment comes with the territory, Victor. Dante's voice was deadly calm. What do you want? Justice. Closure. Victor smiled coldly. Your head on a platter. Get in line. But I have something the others don't. Victor gestured to one of his companions, who held up a manila envelope. Insurance. Which is proof that your precious mentor Vincent Chen was selling information to your enemies before he disappeared. Victor's smile widened. Including details about your relationship with his daughter Maria. That's impossible. Is it? Then explain how Evelyn Santos knew exactly when and where to find Maria the night she died. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Dante's hand moved toward his gun, but Victor's men were already armed and ready. You're lying. Am I? Ask your new girlfriend. Ask her what her stepmother told her about family loyalty. I stepped forward despite Dante's warning look. Evelyn never said anything about Maria. Because you're her backup plan. Victor's attention shifted to me with predatory interest. Insurance in case the first daughter didn't accomplish her goals. What goals? Destroying Dante Moretti from the inside out. Before anyone could react, Victor's phone rang. He answered it, listened briefly, then smiled with genuine pleasure. It seems your penthouse is currently under attack, Mr. Moretti. Such a shame about all that beautiful furniture. Dante moved then, faster than I thought possible. His first shot took down Victor before the man could draw his weapon. The other 2 men scattered, returning fire as they sought cover behind the rooftop's ventilation systems. Stay down, Dante shouted, pulling me behind a concrete barrier. Bullets sparked off metal and shattered concrete around us. I pressed myself against the barrier, my heart hammering so hard I could barely think. How many? Dante called out during a brief lull in the gunfire. 2 left, I managed to say. When I move, you run for the stairwell. Not without you. Nia. We're in this together. He looked at me then, and something fundamental shifted in his expression. Not just protection or duty, but something deeper and more dangerous. Together, he agreed. When the next barrage of gunfire erupted, we moved as one. Dante provided cover while I sprinted toward the stairwell, my heels clicking against the concrete. Behind me, I heard the distinctive sound of his gun, followed by a cry of pain. Then silence. I reached the stairwell and turned back to see Dante standing over the bodies of Victor's men, blood seeping through his shirt sleeve. You're hurt, I said as he reached me. It's nothing. But it wasn't nothing. As we descended the emergency stairs, I could see the pain in his movement, the way he favored his left arm. Why did you shield me? I asked. Because losing you would destroy me. The simple honesty of it took my breath away. Dante. I know it's crazy. I know this whole situation is insane. He stopped on the landing, turning to face me. But somewhere between that first night and now, Protecting you stopped being about duty or guilt and became about love.
Love.
I'm in love with you, Nia. His voice was steady despite the blood loss. And that terrifies me more than any enemy ever could. I reached for him then, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted like desperation and promise. I love you too. But even as we stood there, bleeding and breathless and finally honest with each other, I couldn't shake Victor's words about Evelyn's backup plan. Because if I was insurance, what exactly was I insuring against? And what would happen when Evelyn decided to cash in her policy? You want to know the real truth about your baby's heritage? Evelyn's voice echoed through the abandoned warehouse, cold and triumphant. She stood 50 feet away, flanked by armed men whose faces were hidden in shadows. Behind her, shipping containers created a maze of metal corridors and blind corners. The truth is all I've ever wanted, I called back, stepping forward despite Dante's protective hand on my arm. Careful what you wish for, dear stepdaughter. Dante's grip tightened. She's baiting you. Let her talk, I whispered. We need to know. Evelyn moved closer, her heels clicking against concrete. In the harsh fluorescent lighting, I could see the years of bitterness etched into her face like scars. Your father and I weren't just married, Nia. We were partners in more ways than you knew. Partners in what? In cleaning up the messes left by powerful men. She smiled coldly. Men like your boyfriend's father. Dante stepped forward, his voice deadly quiet. My father's been dead for 15 years. Has he? Evelyn laughed, the sound echoing off metal walls. Or did he simply disappear like all cowards do when their sins catch up with them? I pulled the locket from my pocket, holding it up so the light caught the worn silver. This belonged to my father. You've seen it before. Of course I have. Evelyn's composure cracked slightly. I gave it to him. When I begged him to choose me over his precious business partners. Her voice turned venomous. When I told him I was carrying his child. The warehouse fell silent except for the distant hum of machinery. Dante's face had gone pale. What child? I asked, though something cold was already spreading through my chest. Me. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Evelyn stepped into the light fully, and I could see the family resemblance I'd been blind to, the shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. You're my half-sister, Dante said, his voice hollow. Vincent Chen's firstborn daughter. Abandoned when he chose his second family over his first. Evelyn's mask of civility finally shattered. Left to grow up poor and desperate while you got his name, his protection, his love. I stared at her, pieces of my childhood clicking into place. You married my father to get revenge on yours. I married Vincent to get close to his connections. To find the man who'd thrown me away like garbage. She gestured to Dante. Imagine my surprise when my perfect stepdaughter fell into bed with my half-brother. That's why you sent me to him. Poetic justice. The abandoned daughter delivering the favored son's heir. Evelyn's smile was vicious.
But you were supposed to be broken by it.
Destroyed. Instead, you gave him exactly what he wanted. Dante moved to shield me completely. This ends now. Does it? Evelyn raised her hand, and her men stepped forward with military precision. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. Not all of them. The voice came from behind the shipping containers. Marcus, Dante's security chief, emerged with a team of armed men. The warehouse suddenly bristled with weapons and tension. You called backup, Evelyn observed. I called family. Dante's voice carried new authority. Real family. The kind that chooses loyalty over revenge. How touching. Evelyn pulled a gun from her purse with practiced ease. But you're forgetting something important. Which is, your father didn't just abandon me. He stole from me. Her eyes glittered with malice. Money that was supposed to be mine. Money that's now yours. I don't know what you're talking about. The Moretti Trust Fund. The one that's been growing for 20 years. She aimed the gun directly at my stomach. The one that legally belongs to Vincent Chen's eldest daughter. You want money? Dante stepped forward. Take it. All of it. It's not about money anymore. Evelyn's finger moved to the trigger. It's about making sure you suffer the way I did. By hurting innocent people? By destroying your chance at happiness the way mine was destroyed. The first shot came not from Evelyn but from one of her men, aimed at Dante's head. He dove sideways, pulling me down with him as gunfire erupted throughout the warehouse. Metal sparked and concrete exploded as bullets ricocheted off shipping containers. Dante rolled us behind a forklift, his body covering mine protectively. "Stay down," he shouted over the noise. "Where exactly would I go?" Marcus's voice crackled through Dante's earpiece. "North exit is clear."
Go now.
"Not without ending this," Dante replied. He rose slightly, returning fire with deadly precision. One of Evelyn's men cried out and fell. Then another. "She's moving," I warned, spotting Evelyn creeping between containers. Dante spun, tracking her movement. "Evelyn, this is between us." "No," she called back. "This is between family." She emerged from cover, with the gun trained on me again. "Drop your weapon, little brother. Don't do this. You're going to watch the woman you love die, just like I watched my dreams die. Your dreams died because you chose revenge over healing." "Healing?" Evelyn laughed bitterly. "There's no healing from abandonment. There's only evening the score." I stood slowly, my hands raised. "You don't have to be like this." "Don't I?" Her voice cracked with old pain. "Do you know what it's like to watch your father choose another family? To see him be the man for them that he never was for you?" "Yes." The admission stopped her cold. "I know exactly what that feels like. You had his love. I had his guilt. His overcompensation for whatever he'd done before I was born." I stepped closer, ignoring Dante's warnings. "He never told me about you, but I felt your ghost in every conversation." "That's not." "He used to stare out the window for hours, like he was waiting for someone who never came." My voice softened. "He was waiting for you, wasn't he?" Evelyn's gun wavered. "He chose you. He chose wrong." The words came out stronger than I felt. "But that doesn't mean you have to choose wrong too. It's too late. It's never too late to choose love over hate." For a moment, something human flickered in Evelyn's eyes. Then it hardened again. Pretty words. But love doesn't pay debts or heal scars. She steadied the gun. "Goodbye, sister." The shot that rang out didn't come from her weapon. Marcus had flanked her position, his bullet finding its mark with surgical precision. Evelyn crumpled to the concrete, the gun clattering away from her lifeless fingers. Dante was beside me instantly, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?"
No.
I stared at Evelyn's body, feeling empty instead of relieved. She was just so angry. Anger like that destroys everything it touches, including the person carrying it. Marcus approached, his men securing the warehouse. "Building's clear. What do you want to do with the body?" "Give her a proper burial." Dante's voice was quiet. "She was family. Even after everything? Especially after everything." Dawn was breaking over Chicago when we finally returned to the penthouse. The city sprawled below us, washed clean by the night's rain. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. "It's over," Dante said, joining me at the window. "Is it?" "Evelyn's gone. Her associates scattered." He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his hands settling over my still flat stomach. "We're safe. For now. For always." He turned me to face him, dropping to one knee with fluid grace. "Marry me." "We're already engaged." "That was strategy. This is love." He pulled a ring from his pocket, not the ostentatious diamond he'd chosen for show, but a simple band with a single emerald. "Marry me because you want to, not because you have to." I looked down at him, this dangerous man kneeling before me with vulnerability written across his features. "Yes." He slipped the ring onto my finger, then stood to kiss me with the tenderness of someone who'd thought he'd lost everything and found it again. "I love you," I whispered against his lips. "I love you too." He pressed his forehead against mine. "Both of you." We spent the morning planning a future that seemed impossible just hours earlier. A real wedding, not a strategic alliance. A home for our child, not a fortress. A life built on choice rather than circumstance. I want to transform the business, Dante said over coffee and croissants. Make it legitimate. Something our children can be proud of. Children plural? I'm hoping this is just the beginning. His phone buzzed with a text, and his expression shifted as he read it. What is it? Nothing urgent. But his smile had faltered. Just business. I reached for his phone, but he pulled it away gently. Dante. It's nothing that can't wait. Let me see. He hesitated, then handed over the phone. The message was from an unknown number. Your beginning was unexpected. Now it's unbreakable. But some bloodlines carry deeper secrets. The child's heritage conceals a greater peril. It's far from finished. A friend of Vincent's. My blood turned to ice. Who sent this? I don't know. Dante's voice was carefully controlled. But we'll find out. There's more, isn't there? More secrets about my father. Probably. He took my hands in his. But whatever comes next, we face it together. A soft knock at the door interrupted us. Marcus entered, his expression grim. Sir? We found something in Evelyn's apartment. What kind of something? Documents. Financial records. And a safe deposit box key. Marcus paused. The records show regular payments from an offshore account. Large amounts going back 5 years. Since Maria's death. I realized. Yes, ma'am. And the payments are still active. Dante stood slowly, his businessman's mask sliding back into place. Someone's been funding Evelyn's operations. Who? That's what we need to find out. He moved toward his office. Because if they're still out there, they're coming for us next. I followed him, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. Our child really isn't safe, is it? Not until we know who else Vincent crossed. Dante's voice carried deadly promise. But we will know. And we will stop them. As he began making calls to set investigations in motion, I returned to the window. The morning sun that had seemed so hopeful now felt like the calm before another storm. My phone chimed with a new message from the same unknown number. The sins of the fathers visit the children. Your baby carries more than Moretti blood. Ask Dante about the Kozlov debt. Ask him why Vincent really disappeared. Then ask yourself if love is worth dying for. I stared at the message until the words blurred, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Because I was beginning to understand that Evelyn's revenge had been just the opening move in a much larger game. And our child, innocent and unborn, was somehow the ultimate prize. I thought our story was over. I was wrong. Because what I discovered about our baby's bloodline, it changes everything. The war for our family had only just begun.